the most important participant, which is one of the presenters, Susan Nolden from City of Bonn. So I'd like to thank you very much for your patience once again and your interest to join us today in this webinar on preparations for the agenda of local and regional governments at COP23 in Bonn. At the outset, I'd like to request all of you to mute yourself from your own screen so that the session can flow smoothly. And just would like to underline that we had some technical difficulties for this round for some issues our side, so we would like to bear with your patience. Pedro, can you just once again inform our colleagues on how to participate in this session now?
Yeah, so in the chat dialog box, you can address questions to Yunus in case you have any questions, and then Yunus will address them in the webinar. Yeah.
Yeah, so I wasn't able to use my computer because the session is full, so I had to call you via phone, so I'm not able to join you on the online. Sorry for that.
Sorry, who is speaking?
Silke, my name is Silke. Silke from Climate Alliance. Hi.
Hi.
Okay, so for those colleagues who are connecting via phone, we thank you very much for your also interest. And if you can also from your phones, if you can mute yourself, that would help us enormously.
Okay, perfect.
Yunus, just the IMers have to call in, so it would be great if the organizers could actually send their nurses the PowerPoint for those of them of us
exactly.
Not call. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks a lot. I mean, this is enormously helping us. We once again apologize for the inconvenience, and we will make sure that at least the webinar presentation will be made online. And without further delay, I'd like to start this round. I'd like to first of all welcome Susan Nolden from City of Bonn, from the Department of International Affairs and Global Sustainability, to make a short welcome introduction as not just from City of Bonn, but also the host city of this year's COP. So Susan, the phone is yours and the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Yunus. Is everybody able to hear me properly after the difficulties, I hope? My name is Susanne Nolden, and on behalf of the City of Bonn, of the Mayor of Bonn, Ashok Sridharan, and of the Department of International Affairs and Global Sustainability, I'd like to welcome you in this call and hopefully in November in Bonn on the occasion.
Sorry, Susan, could you speak up a little bit?
It's okay, Sabine. So a warm welcome to Bonn and to COP23, of course, on behalf of the City of Bonn and the Department of International Affairs, and of course by the Mayor of Bonn, Ashok Sridharan, who is transmitting his regards. Yunus has already pre-informed you with some documents on what we are planning. We is the City of Bonn and their partners. We are in negotiations with the state of North Rhine-Westphalia and with many other partners, and of course we would absolutely be dependent on your input and endorsement if we want to talk about cities and regions that we have to plan all this. So this phone meeting, this webinar is our first opportunity to get together and discuss what will happen in Bonn in November. And I can already announce a face-to-face meeting, Yunus, from ICLE. ICLE is doing the coordination and organization work for this important conference and facilitating all the contributions of partners. And with the help of ICLE, an invitation has been sent round already for the 7th of May. This will be the Sunday between the Resilient Cities Conference and the subsidiary bodies to the UNFCCC. And on that Sunday, we would suggest to get together here in the town hall in Bonn and talk about the upcoming conferences and the opportunity to interact with the negotiations and to send out strong messages. And with no delay, I would like to hand back to Yunus, who will take us deeper into the matters. Thank you.
Thank you, Susan. Today's webinar is the first round of the interaction with the interested partners to design our agenda at COP23 in November in Bonn. Therefore, this will be repeated in a number of rounds towards COP. So we are happy that we are advancing in this process. So today we will start by just addressing what is the uniqueness of COP23. Then we will go through this full 2 weeks of agenda, and we will also touch upon our summit, Leaders Summit on Sunday. And then we will also end up by having a look at the next couple of months, how we can advance from now until November, and then we will open the floor for discussions and contributions. The climate conferences, the UN climate conferences, is every year depending on the conditions and the priorities of the host, political priorities, and the agenda of the technical negotiations, of course. If we have a bird's eye overview, it would be interesting to note a number of interactions that may take place that will define both the agenda and the outcomes. So the first round, of course, the national priorities. You all know a number of countries are going through elections, and there will be some more coming up in the next couple of months. Depending on this result, of course, national priorities may change or may be refreshed, and the negotiation positions of some countries may also be significantly changing, because over the last couple of months, you all are following the global agenda that some of the elections are unpredictable. So this unpredictability would also may shape or guide what to expect from COP. So this is the first thing in hand. The second thing, we are at the end of the day a part of a United Nations process, and obviously with the new Secretary General we are foreseeing several reforms, and also some national governments are also considering their relation with the United Nations. This will also inevitably impact UNFCCC, the Climate Secretariat. This may also change the way we discuss and the way we interact in Bonn in November. And of course, climate change is a part of the overall sustainable development agenda. Therefore, any progress on that front will also be considered as an important input. And in particular for local and regional governments, this year we also have a special case, because there will be several discussions on the Habitat 3 follow-up, which will certainly impact the way local and regional governments are interacting with the UN system. So let's not forget that other framing conditions in this sense. If we look at the UNFCCC, the climate process, this year in COP, we have a unique situation. For the first time, we have a unique partnership. We are witnessing a presidency of a national government who is politically hosting the presidency, which is Fiji, but technically the summit is hosted by the UN Climate Change Secretariat, and physically it is hosted in Bonn. So this introduces a new way of work, and we will all experience this unique model. The interesting thing could be that because of the upcoming arrangements, it may be possible to expect that this will not be the last time. So any precedents, what we will see this year in November, it may open up new doors that such a model can be replicated in future. In terms of substance, this year the COP, unlike, for example, Paris or Copenhagen, it is not a peak year, which means we are not expecting major decisions, major outcomes, but it is more like a transition towards a couple of years ahead, including starting off a review process of nationally determined contributions in 2018. Therefore, outcomes and expectations of this summit should also be considered according to these priorities. And of course, while the negotiations continue, the key priority is that what is the action before 2020, which is an important year, and how the national actions are shaped towards medium-term targets, which is 2050. So these will still be an important agenda in this year's COP. This year, another important progress is coming up from the scientific part. As a decision of Paris, there is the preparations started already advancing on the 1.5 degree. What it does this report will contain, it will be important, but in particular for IPCC process, we are also happy to announce that there is a significant progress in the organization of a cities conference in 2018 March. Therefore, IPCC process will also help us to advance the agenda of COP23. And finally, we are also living in a real world where, independent from the political and negotiations, there is an increase in the global warming despite flattening or despite relatively stable global emissions, which is showing us the importance that the tendency of the increase of climate change may still be significantly alarming to certain regions in the world. So adaptation is increasing, especially when we're talking about a small lands country hosting the summit. And we're also seeing that evolution to low carbon technologies, 100% renewables is massively evolving in a number of countries, despite some changes in the local and national priorities. So if this is the political and technical context, what are the 2 weeks that we are preparing for in November? For those who are familiar with the climate conferences, we are usually talking about 2 weeks, and in the middle of these 2 weeks, we have a Sunday, which is usually a non-working day. And if we look at these 2 weeks, this colorful presentation is showing us a number of tracks that we are trying to follow. It's in a bird's eye view. What we are expecting that in the first week we will have mainly technical sessions, and of course throughout the 2 weeks we will have side events, and this year it will be unique in the setting of the Bonn as a whole city hosting a number of events. And we are hearing that there will be special procedures and special arrangements for actions area summits, where most of the side events and most of the exhibits will be all evolving, and then there will be a negotiations area inside the World Conference Center. In the second week, starting from Monday onwards, there will be high-level segments starting onwards. So if we look at these 2 weeks and considering the priorities, we are planning to have the peaking of the agenda of local and subnational governments around a time that covers the Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday, which is from 10th of November to 14th of November as the peaking days of our activities. And while we are expecting this Sunday being the peaking of that, there will be certain events before and after the summit as well. So if we go through the logic of our condensed 4 days, we are preparing that on Saturday we would be starting by a kind of a cultural and social event, and we're in discussion with Al Gore's team for a special viewing of the Inconvenient sequel, which will be the 10th anniversary of the Inconvenient Truth. And on the evening, we are prepared for a reception hosted by City of Bonn. On Sunday, 12th of November, we will have the full day reserved for the summit. We will go through the details later on. And on that evening, we are preparing to host, to be welcomed by State of North Rhine-Westphalia. On Monday, we will feed into the UNFCCC area heavily. We will have our press conference, which will display our outcomes from the day before. We are hoping that on Monday, 13th of November, and on 14th of November, we would be hoping to join the negotiators, and in particular the ministers and high-level negotiators, through a series of events, either hosted by the champions or the secretariat, and this will be the place where we would interact as much as possible with the negotiators. And during these couple of days, we will also have a number of outside events like low emission solutions dinner or sustainable innovation forum breakfast. If we look at the activities beforehand, here you can see, I will not go all through it, but these are all expected events where we are hoping that the partners of all local and regional governments and their networks will all feed into the summit on the 12th, which through their events there will be a possibility to share their outcomes to the Sunday event, and then we will all feed into the UNFCCC. We would like to reserve a couple of more minutes for the agenda of the Sunday, the Leaders Summit, because that is probably the backbone of our engagement. This year's highlight, because those who have been following the process for a couple of years, almost regularly we are convening the local and regional leaders summit, parallel to the climate conferences. The uniqueness of this year is in three folds. The first one is that local and regional governments' collaborative engagement will be much more visible this year, hopefully. We are benefiting from the presence of, in a country where there is a strong culture of multi-level governance. And we all know that the future success of Paris Agreement depends on an appropriate synergy among local, regional, and national governments. Therefore, this year you would see much more stronger collaboration between local and regional governments as co-hosting, as Susan Nolden mentioned, but also developing the whole context. And on Sunday, one of the reasons why we convene the summit on Sunday is that we want to ensure maximum interaction with the negotiators. So it's not a summit that we talk to each other, but we want to increase our interaction with the delegations. We are all aware that this should be much more advanced in the future sessions. So we want to use as much as possible the model here in Bonn. And as building on the spirit of the previous years, we will definitely engage with all our partners with different, let's say, representative groups to design the sessions as much as interactively as much as possible. For this year, we would like to propose that we focus on 4 themes. The first one, as the most important one in terms of the negotiations of the climate negotiations, is the vertical integration and multi-level governance. We want to come up with specific discussions on that. Then we would address the interaction between sustainable development, climate, biodiversity, SDGs. This issue would be much more intensively debated in this year's summit. Then we would also like to have the third area, which is independent from global goals or independent from national governments, how we can work as local and regional governments who have strong powers in selected sectors, how we can use our power to bring community and business regardless of the global and national agenda. So this is something that we have to increase more and emphasize more, because we know there is more and more an expectation from our community. And of course, this year again we are in the soil of Europe, which is a leading partner of the global north. So considering the respect to our presidency, which is a major country of the small island states, this year we will also focus on partnerships of our peers of local and regional governments in small island states, Africa, and climate vulnerable countries. So these are the 4 themes that we would like to focus this year. In terms of the design of the day, we would suggest to have a relatively a closed event that will primarily focus on the leaders and their high-level partners. That would enable them to have a closer consultation and outcomes. And in the thematic sessions in the rest of the afternoon, we will meet with negotiators and city officials and our partners. And by the end of the day, we also would like to meet with the negotiators, especially focusing on NDCs. Throughout this day, we would aim to come up with some outcomes. First of all, in all these 4 areas, what are our good practices that each of us can use later on? The second outcomes could be the updates of our efforts on these 4 themes. We could also expect to have announcements of new initiatives, new partnerships, and we also would like to come up with our concrete proposals in the negotiations throughout the last week of the UNFCCC, but also in SDGs in other areas. And this is our last slide. As we have mentioned before, this is the first official interaction in terms of design of this process. So in May in Bonn, there will be a series of events, in particular Summit 7th of May, but there will be special sessions in May. After May, after the conclusion of the technical sessions, there will be a series of events which is not necessarily directly linked to our climate agenda, but the outcomes and the possible interactions will help us, and there will be outcomes that will feed into the preparations of the COP in Bonn. With this, I know it's not the best technical conditions for a webinar today. Therefore, I would like to give you a short break to our presentation. In fact, we reached to the end of our overall presentation. But maybe there may be questions now and clarities, or in particular, if there are any organizations who would like to announce their preparations, we can also share, so that for the next round of interaction, especially on 7th of May, we can inform each other. So with this, I would like to say that I'm concluding, and we will now start to hear input from our participants of the webinar.
Yunus, may I shortly add? Yunus?
Sure, please go ahead.
Can you flip back to the page where you introduced the summit? That one, yes. Because I think we need to precise. You mentioned that interaction between negotiators and high-level representatives is important. This is why you can see on the slide a split between a high-level event to take place in the morning and the main conference to take place in the afternoon. And this is a subject we will come to a bit later in the session again, and we would like to ask you for your ideas and contributions also to the participant selection for this higher level event, because it should be a strong visibility of the power of cities and regions and their networks in there.
Thank you, Susanna. Are you speaking? This is Sabine from German.
Hello, Sabine.
Hi, this is Sabine from German Association of Cities. So we are also very interested in that high-level event. Just asking a question, so how high-level event it is. So we wonder whether you expect, whom you expect from German Association of Cities. So this is also very much depending on the other representatives.
I think, Sabine, we should find a solution that all the networks are represented on the highest possible level. Mm-hmm. So by the political representatives. It should be, there are several networks in the room and in the call, and everybody yes. of those, they have a presidency and they have several mayors who are very active, and perhaps even in the topics we would discuss. But I am not the one to decide which mayor from which network is the one to represent. It is actually the networks we would like to, our target is it to have a global split of mayors and regional governors, leaders, to have a split which shows developing and developed countries, to have a split perhaps even of gender, to have male and female mayors and regional leaders in there. But after all, in the call, here are the network persons. They know their membership, they know their cities, and they know who would be perhaps keen to speak and who would be the best person to represent their advocacy and targets.
Yes, okay, I understand. So, but how do you go forward then? How will work then the selection procedure?
We will set up an application option. Yunus, perhaps you will add to this, because we don't have in total yet.
Hello.
Yes, hello. Hi.
I think Susan had some difficulties. So what we would like to we would like to gradually advance is the list of organizations who are contributing to the summit and their proposed speakers on their behalf on this sequence of themes and priority issues. And in that sense, we would also, of course, open the registration, of course, but it will be more like on a bilateral with all the partner organizations who would like to be engaged in the process. So I think by the 7th of May meeting, we would advance, in particular in the design of our event, because one of the issues that we are, of course, discussing is where the event will be hosted in terms of logistics, because the venue can shape the sessions, the diversity of, let's say, the debate, or the duration of, and of whether we will have a bigger plenary or smaller working groups, or how we'll be interacting during the conference rooms. There are several options of logistical venues options, and we assume that by 7th of May there will be more clarity, which can help us to respond to our partners much more solidly. Therefore, at this stage, we don't want to say that everything is designed and finished, and we will just go ahead, but rather we want to consider a couple of options or a couple of flexibilities. But for sure, in basic terms, we are talking about 100 or so political representatives, either of the networks or of some selected cities and regions. And in case of German cities, I think we also should be thinking of how we will connect. There will be several events in the way towards the preparations, like the conference in Essen, or other events. We have to take into account how the participation of this event will impact our preparations and our outcomes in Bonn. So I think at this stage, rather than the concrete number and the names, we would rather try to step-by-step advance in terms of what we want to discuss and when and how, and then we would like to come to the finalization of the number and the names of the speakers.
Okay, but from my understanding, or just to understand the structure, so you will invite more or less 100 people in the morning, so as delegates from all the participating organizations, but just to have an idea how it works, so are you organizing then a panel with a few people that will be interviewed by a moderator and the others are listening, or how do you organize an interaction with all these 100 people?
So once again, the structure of the high-level event in the morning will be different than the thematic sessions. For the high-level event, we're thinking of a joint debate, which will be more like a plenary room and several, let's say, key agreements or key commitments that we will all agree by our leaders, so that this will be announced in the afternoon. But in the afternoon, we would rather like to present and share of best practices or highlight specific issues, so that it will not be too much decision making, but much more a more interactive dialogue. I see one question from one of our partners, Platforma. They were asking LLCS, but I mean, I'm already aware of so many abbreviations, but LLCS was a bit new for me. Marine Godron on Simone Licomati. Can you help me to understand what you mean?
Sorry, that's my abbreviation of Local Leaders Climate Summits, but I understand that the abbreviation changes every year, so I'm also very confused.
Yeah. Okay.
If I can just share with you what we were thinking of and what we were suggesting. I think we've been discussing with you and some colleagues of Bonn already. On Platforma side, we would be interested to use this summit of local leaders to make the case of decentralized cooperation and partnership between, well, Europe and local governments and partner countries for the implementation of climate projects. And so we think that would fit in the themes you were presenting, the holistic approach and the partnerships with most vulnerable countries. And in that regard, we would be ready to facilitate participation of some of our partners in developing countries. So I wanted to make the point already.
Thank you, Marin. This is exactly type of, let's say, feedbacks we would like to hear from our partners, because obviously not everybody is interested in all the topics, or even if everybody is interested, there may be more specific focuses. So as you mentioned, the third and the fourth topics probably will fit you the best. And we would like to track this kind of interest so that we can share how we would prepare that session. And also, once again, the summit on its own cannot be enough to accommodate everyone, but there will be possibly some preparatory events before or after. We can also use this time frame so that we can announce at the summit if any of the information is coming from the day before, or that is announced on the way towards Bonn, so that it is announced at the summit, but it doesn't necessarily have to be occurring at this day. So in that sense, I know a number of partners have been scheduling their preparatory meetings on, for example, Friday, Saturday, so that in that Sunday we can announce what has happened the day before in this discussions. And then we can say that these organizations and their members are committed to deliver X, Y, Z, how you would wish so. So definitely Platforma, as a European leading or initiative on city-to-city or regional partnerships, has a huge role to play. Therefore, we look forward to working with you so that we can design the best way forward. And the abbreviation is really a challenge. We are very well aware of that. We look forward to also making this issue both a meaningful abbreviation, but also something that is consistent. As we all said, starting from Paris onwards, there is a certain tendency and new type of, let's say, working models, and we hope we will make some progress on that. And let's on the front line saying that yes, every summit is unique, but there is also a need to ensure continuity of the dialogue or any outcome from previous summits to be incorporated into this one, so that we build brick by brick our big new home, which is low carbon, climate resilient, and multi-stakeholder and multi-level. So we have to be innovative, and we have to be open for these kind of proposals, I guess. I have a question I see in the chat box from Eva Banyos, I guess from CMR. I hope I'm correct. The key proposals will be issued out of the thematic sessions or the high level. I would suggest that we would rather like to have the key political outcomes from the morning session, so that it could be agreed by the political leaders, and in the afternoon, which will be much more open to the public, webcasted or interactive, it is much more not a negotiation, but to discuss how we will build upon. And in that sense, the process that will lead us, the period from now, this couple of months towards the summit, is as equally important as the summit itself, which means that we have to prepare the outcome initiatives or outcome documents beforehand, so that we can make sure that when the leaders meet in the morning, they can commit that with their inputs, they can see that this is a joint effort. So in that sense, if your question in short one, high-level segment is the one where we would like to agree, and the thematic sessions is the one where we want to share and inspire the rest of the world. Again, follow up to this question, drafting committee for any formal political commitment document. This is exactly the type of the role that we would expect from our partners, so that those who express their commitment to contribute to the summit, they can nominate their representatives who would be involved in the the substance or technical or logistical or delegation wise. So definitely starting from 7th of May onwards, we would like to work through working groups so that we can build up on the way forward. I see
Yunus,
so
I have a very practical question from Thomas from Climate Alliance, if you don't mind.
No, please go ahead, Thomas, please.
Am I right that the summit, the leaders summit, will be outside the official negotiation venue? Is it right?
So this terminology, today we had a meeting with the Secretariat in order to understand. As far as we are informed, because of the logistical challenges of Bonn, they would like to redesign the whole actions and the side events and the negotiations area in a way that all this type of, let's say, interactions on actions, the ones that are not related to the negotiations, will all be held somewhere which is very connected to the conference venue, but it is not in the conference venue itself.
So the main question is if the participants need the accreditation, the official accreditation, or not, or if it's open for everyone.
For the Sunday, we will make sure, because Sunday is usually closed. So we are discussing with the Secretariat so that independent from this registration quota, that our potential 500 participants to the summit on Sunday, we can register them and we can make sure that they can attend the event. But on the other days, which is the usual week 1 and week 2, the regular quota will apply. But at the moment, we are also waiting for final announcement from the Climate Secretariat. I think during the technical sessions in May, there may be some more announcements on that, because they are discussing with the capacity and logistically. So that's, we are still also not 100% aware of the final procedures, but we are assuming there will be some quotas applying. But for Sunday, we are trying to make sure that our quota of 500 will be managed by us, the co-hosts, and ICLE, which is the local and regional governments all together, so that our 500 will have access on Sunday, independent from what happens on the day before, on the day after. But during the week, during the regular working week, we may expect there will be certain restrictions or limitations.
Yeah, okay.
Yunus.
So, yeah, please.
Nicola from the European Community Region. Sorry, we don't have access to the webinar. We are connected by the phone. Can I add a word for a second about the
Sure.
our contribution? Yeah. So from our side, so we are of course interested in the first 3 themes. In terms of level of representation, we'll come with 20 members, and 4 of them will be our president of the COR, our thematic rapporteurs on climate change, and the chair of the of our committee on climate change. So all these people will be there. Their participation will be financed. We are particularly interested in working with you on the side events, on the special summit sessions, mainly on the one on the Global Covenant of Mayors, if this is interest to you. So we can easily support you with that, and we also have all our communication tools and channels to be mobilized. So count on us for that.
Excellent. Thanks a lot, Nicola. Committee of the Regions is a very unique and very important body in Europe. We have in this webinar colleagues outside Europe, so they may not be very familiar with your institution, but it's a very unique consultative body at the European level. Therefore, this debate on multi-level governance, I think Committee of the Regions have a lot of things to share, and definitely we are also discussing with the Secretariat of the Global Covenant how we can use the summit day and the day before especially to demonstrate how Covenant is advancing in Europe and globally. So it's really great to hear your commitment and your strong engagement in this summit. Thanks, Nicola. So I have a couple of questions from the participants. Let me read all of them and then we go each of them. I hear from Agathe and Emmanuel from C40. They would like to contribute. But before that, I would like to read another contribution. Mark Major from SLOCAT, the Sustainable Low Carbon Transport, is also joining us. and they are among our partners whom we are hoping to collaborate. They have been hosting the regular transport days in every COP, and this year we would like to align ourselves, so they will also be joining us. Mark, I don't see any question at this stage necessarily. If this is the case, maybe so Mark has a question. He's asking, how do we know the party and negotiators will come to the event? Okay, let's try to go into this. And Karina from WWF is also on the line, and she would like to announce the commitment of the WWF. And there is another contribution from Eva from CMR. If we want to organize a side event, could it be in the same place of the summit? Okay, that's an important question as well. So let's hear from C40 as well, and then from Karina, and we can also respond to Mark in terms of the negotiators, if they're still on the line. Yeah.
Thank you, Yunus, and good afternoon, everyone. This is Emmanuel from C40. So first, I would like to congratulate ICLE and the City of Bonn for this presentation and for the plans that we see with a very good eyes are advancing pretty well in Bonn for COP23. So thank you for doing this on behalf of the LGMA, and thank you for the leadership of the City of Bonn. As far as C40 is concerned, we are happy to support the summit, as we did last year in Marrakesh and the year before in Paris. In terms of the goals, which I believe are at this point are the most important discussion we should have as a constituency, I think we would be very interested to discuss more in details what do we want to achieve with vertical integrations of NDCs on one side, and on the other side, what do we mean by holistic approach to sustainable development and climate, particularly thinking of what specific decisions are we targeting from the negotiators at COP23 to have to show progress on those two fronts. So I guess this will be probably one of the two main sets of proposals that will be the outcomes of the summit, and I think it's a very good thing to think of set of proposal rather than declaration. I think at this point we already have expressed in many occasions our commitments as local governments to act on climate change and to deliver on the Paris Agreement. We could do that again, but most importantly we must indicate the solutions that we see would help deliver directly and indicate to the negotiators the kind of decisions we're expecting from them to facilitate that. So we are very happy to contribute to that discussion on the drafting of the set of proposals. I'm not sure we're going to be able to join the meeting in May. Unfortunately, as you know, we are a bunch of French people here working at C40 in city diplomacy, and you might know that this is the second round of the French national election, so there are some important things to be done elsewhere as well, but we will try to send someone. And in general, very happy to contribute to this process and recalling the importance of the preparatory process, at least on the political side. I had some specific questions, but I think you already kind of began to answer to them in terms of what are the possibilities, logistical possibilities or agenda possibilities to think of special sessions and side events inside the summit during the day of the summit. And on the other side, in your presentation, you mentioned a series of other events happening, which is very helpful, I think. Of course, we will make some research to make sure we are fully updated on this. But if you have more information on those events, I think that would be helpful also for everyone to know. Thank you.
Thanks, Emmanuel. We have a couple of more colleagues, so let's compile also their inputs, and then maybe we can make a final round. But it's really great to hear your support, and definitely we would continue to work on the way forward. So let's follow the order. We have Mark from SLOCAT, Karina from WWF, and then I see Carlos from FMDV. Karina, are you still on the line?
Yes, I'm here.
Perfect.
Thank you, Yunus, and hi, everyone. So I just wanted to briefly say that Manuel Pulgar Vidal, who was invited to this call as a representative for WWF's new Global Climate and Energy Initiative, he couldn't make it, but he really wanted us from the WWF Cities team bring the message to all of you that for WWF, the role of cities is extremely important in our global climate and energy strategy, and that we are particularly interested now in the run-up to COP and following COP and during COP to support the theme of NDC ambition and how to use CD commitments and to enable CD commitments and actions to raise those NDCs. And in this, I also wanted to mention that WWF's City Challenge, which has been running now for 5 years, is currently engaging and inviting cities in 30 countries to make public commitments and action plans to report them on the Carbon Climate Registry. And we have set the deadline for reporting before COP23 in order to build more critical mass. And our local policy teams across the world, and in particular in those 30 countries, will be very interested in working together with partners on identifying opportunities to spread and raise the ambitions of the cities and use those for raising the NDCs and identifying obstacles and overcoming them. So this is an invitation for collaboration and also a highlighting of this very strong interest from WWF to support on this topic. And I can also mention of course, the business and community engagement themes, which is very important in particular for our colleagues in the US right now. Thank you.
Thanks, Karina. For our colleagues, just to recall, Mr. Pulgar Vidal is the former president of the COP in Peru, in Lima, in his capacity as the Minister of Environment of Peruvian government, and he has been a strong advocate of the action agenda and as well as cities. So in his new capacity as WWF leader on climate and energy, and also speaking on cities agenda of WWF, it's a huge opportunity. And these are the type of new type of relations and new opportunities we see. Therefore, we are very happy to hear this commitment from Karina on behalf of Mr. Vidal, and definitely we will be making use of this strong engagement, Karina. Thanks a lot, and especially through this motivation of reaching out a broader community beyond local governments and helping them to be more ambitious and encouraging them to get citizen support. Thanks a lot. Mark, you wanted to underline some of the contribution of the transport community. I see you. If you're still on the line, please go ahead.
Yes, I'm here. Thank you very much for all this information and your initiative, Yunus. Much appreciated. Yeah, I mean, as you said, we're prepared to contribute on the transport part. We have a lot of climate and transport activities with an urban relevance in 2017. So we think we would certainly have something to bring to the party. My key question that I wrote in the chat was, I mean, all of this effort and structure and planning is great, but I mean, and of course I was formerly a negotiator, so I know a little bit from the other side. It's like what assurance or what can we do to make sure that we get that engagement with the parties and the negotiators on a Sunday afternoon when they're going to be very busy and tired?
Well, this is a very unique question, so I don't want to postpone it to the next round, but I'd like to respond immediately. This is one of the let's say challenges, because we know it's not easy to reserve their time, and we also have been hearing negotiators are also are flooded or loaded with a number of invitations. Our logic is that if we have it on Sunday, we know officially there is no scheduled negotiations, and they have their bilaterals, or sometimes they rest. And if we can make sure that we well inform them before the COP and on the day, so that if they can be scheduling their ministers or heads of negotiators arriving to our summit on the concluding, let's say, the last 2 hours, or some of them joining us in this closed delegation meetings, that would enable us to announce their commitments or to work with us. And of course, until COP, during this COP here in the subsidiary body meetings here in Bonn, and on the way towards the COP, we have to work together. And for this, we have created since 2013 a kind of an informal group called Friends of Cities, and we want to make use of this initiative much more actively. But this issue is also related to the national governments who are part of this process. There were some national governments who were a strong advocate of city agenda. Now we are hearing that they are not anymore interested, but there are some new ones coming up. So we have to approach to those who are the most champions of this agenda at the national level, so that we reach to them very, very closely and list them as proudly as these are the countries that we are working together, and give them visibility and the opportunity to interact. So I don't want to give any name now, but there are a lot of names that are on the table. During the negotiations in Bonn, this will also be important, so that we approach to these countries. And in that sense, based on your previous, let's say, life, any additional contribution will be more than welcome. But we know it's always a challenge, because if you organize the event during the week, there is also this chance that they're always loaded in the UNFCCC process, so that they cannot get out. Maybe one important point, this year we just had this discussion with the UNFCCC, and when we say ministers, the ministers in a climate setting is usually ministers of environment or ministers of climate change. But the real action agenda is led by other line ministries like transport, energy, and urban development. And urban development ministers had not been involved, for example. This year we want to approach them. I know Slokat is also working on the transport ministers. So let's also consider to diversify our partners in the national government, so that we can bring these other, let's say, friendly delegations, or those government, let's say, representatives who are much more working closely with our local and subnational governments. So let's think of broad, and let's note that this is a challenge, but we feel that having it on Sunday can give us an opportunity to have their increased engagement.
Yeah, thank you very much for this answer, and I mean we can keep discussing this as the weeks and months progress. I mean, one element of your answer that I think is very promising is this idea of including in the event some opportunity for leading parties to say how they're engaging cities in this NDC process, how they're actually doing it, what they're doing. I think that's, and negotiators are always keen to find out about what others are doing. So if this is highlighted, that may well draw them in. Look forward to discussing this. Yes.
Excellent.
So, Jonas.
Yeah, we have Carlos on the line, or someone else?
Yes, I'm here.
And there was another, someone is trying to intervene?
Yeah. Hi, Jonas. It's Nick from Climate Action. I'll go next if that's okay.
Perfect.
I can't log in online, so.
Yeah. So let's hear from Carlos, and then we can try to connect Nick again. So Carlos from FMDU, please.
Yes, very quickly. Thanks again, Yunus, for organizing this webinar. It's very important. We do coordinate even before the 7th of May. As you know, we've been coordinating the second summit during COP23 2. And just to announce two things, CCFLA will be probably organizing a side event during the COP, so you can add a reference to these special events. And of course, in the new list of topics, financing is not a core topic, obviously because we already have a roadmap and we already discussed this, but it will be still very important to add this topic to the discussions. This relates to the articulation between the topics and the cross-cutting issues, because they are very broad in spectrum. So in terms of agenda and designing more properly the content of the summit, what do you have in mind? I think it's an important one. And if you've been speaking to the GCA support team since the meeting in London, that would be also interesting to know if you had any feedbacks.
Thanks, Carlos. Let's note this. First of all, it's great to hear that the additional special event is designed on finance, and it's definitely, you don't see finance in the themes, but we see finance as one of the cross-cutting, so that whatever we decide should be having an aspect of how we will implement this with resources. And we didn't want to highlight finance this time because it was already a roadmap that was clear from last year, but maybe it would be good to provide updates on what is the progress and what type of new processes are coming up, rather than revisiting this topic, because the difficulty of finance is that we're always just talking about it, but sometimes people are starting to get a bit disappointed without seeing too much progress. So we didn't want to go into that line again, because we know that there's already bodies and strategies adopted, so we just keep updated. So that was first thinking, but we didn't have a concrete design on how we make this cross-cutting elements. So that's why we would like to continue this dialogue with you. And maybe regarding to the global climate action, I think they are wrapping up their summary of their conclusions from the meeting 2 weeks ago in London. And I also assume they would like to hear some more feedbacks during the next technical sessions from the champions and others. So at the moment I don't have concrete final documents yet, but we hope to have more clarity in the next couple of days, I guess. Nick, are you on the line still?
Yeah, yes I am, Yunus. Yes, thank you. Yeah, firstly, congratulations to yourself and Susan from the City of Bonn for facilitating this conversation. As you know, we're organising the Sustainable Innovation Forum on Monday and Tuesday on the 13th and 14th. We're very excited to be working with Italy around the breakfast on the 14th. And I have two direct questions. One, is it possible to share the contact details of all the participants on this call following the call, because I think it would be very useful for everyone's sort of collaboration and coordination, if that's possible. Yunus?
What we can do, Nick, sharing directly contact details is not the best way to go forward, but we have a group of those who have been involved in the constituency and LGMA, where we are sharing our updates, and we can include you in this mailing list, and we can also include who has been attending this call. That's for sure, we can do that. But maybe in terms of contact details, we can work in a separate way rather than sharing direct.
Okay, I didn't make a note of everybody at the beginning, so it's tricky.
Yeah, sure. We can list the whole participants. No, don't worry, we can do that for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, fantastic. The second point relates to sort of venues and collaboration. Obviously, the 7th of May is going to be an important sort of date for getting clarity around venues. But I also wondered if it would be, given the sort of the challenges around venues this year, if it would also help a lot of organisations to have greater transparency over who is doing what from the 7th of May onwards. So that we could sort of, if required, collaborate in more depth around venues or other kind of other requirements as required.
I think that's an important point, Nick, you raised. those who are on the call, Sustainable Innovation Forum has been convening this multi-stakeholder dialogue, especially business and civil society, since 2010, and we have been actively working with them. And this is a type of event that is not necessarily taking exactly in the negotiations area or the green zone, but it's somewhere in the city. And this is exactly what the UN Climate Secretariat is also saying, that we want to use the whole city as a part of the interaction. And in the Bonn case, there's an advantage and disadvantage. Advantage is that it's a small city, which means that you can easily reach to destinations with a couple of blocks of stops by subway or even walking or biking. I mean, in November, it's not easy, of course. I think this venue logistics would help us, or let's say more clarity would be achieved by the technical sessions in Bonn, because as you have noticed, there's still not an, or let's say, confirmed announcement from Secretariat yet, but we hope there will be some announcement soon. And depending on this, we can still, I think, be flexible on what to do, how to use the various venues in the city or the city hall or others. So we still have to keep a bit alerted ourselves and help each other. As you have mentioned, some of the events may be bundled together. We can share the spaces so that we can share the costs, or we can benefit from each other. I think we should still be a bit more flexible on that, and definitely should continue the next couple of weeks ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Yunus. I think that would be of great benefit to many organizations on this call, I would imagine.
Yeah, and we hear similar points. For example, Eva from CMR was saying that if we want to organize another side event during these days, is there be possibility of sharing the space, for example? Definitely, we would like to make use of this possibility. It depends, again, the conditions that we will see or hear from the UNFCCC. Let's remember, technically the host is UN Climate Secretariat, but of course the German government, City of Bonn, state, and especially the German Development Ministry, who are main supporters of financially this whole process, will make certain announcements, and their resources will be definitely important for us. But we are still keeping these options that we can combine some of these events. And I now read again from Virginia, from the climate group. She's saying that she would have to leave soon. But they will share their agenda. This is extremely important. States and Regions Alliance, and under two coalition, as you have seen, we would hope, because that the partnership with State of North Rhine-Westphalia and the rest of other regional governments, this year we will have much more engagement, and we hope to have more announcements probably in the next 2 weeks, and possibly by 7th of May. This meeting now today is important because this Friday we will be meeting once again with the German partners who are involved in the organization of the whole thing. So we will provide all of them this kind of inputs that we hear from you. Another one from Eva, European Parliament and Commission involved. Will they be involved in the preparation of the local summit? For the European Parliament, not now. At least we don't have the dialogue yet. But with the Commission, we are working through the Global Covenant Secretariat, and any contribution additionally from that side onwards will be more than helpful. Eva, we can continue after this call. There was another question from
Yunus?
Eva. Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, it's Nathalie. I was not here at the beginning of the call because I could not actually connect to the online, so I joined later on the call.
Sorry for that. Yeah, please go ahead. Yeah.
No, can I go ahead now?
Please.
Okay, thanks. No, I'm joining the colleagues to thank you for that call, which is very helpful. It's great to be able to share the information, and it's good to hear there are so many people and organizations online. Of course, UCLG will support the organization of the summit in November, and any other events where our support would be of relevance. And as facilitator of the Global Task Force, I just wanted to say that we would make sure to ensure information flow and mobilization of the Global Task Force members and partners along the path. That's it. Thank you.
Thanks, Natalia. Just maybe to once again emphasize, as you all know, the global community of local and subnational governments have advanced a lot over the past years, and the Global Task Force has played a key role in raising this issue in a number of UN fora, and we are very happy that the climate agenda and the other agendas are now much more converging, and as the key partners, we are very happy to work this together. This, as maybe you have not heard, but we've mentioned, Natalia, about the other parallel events going on in the UN, especially Habitat 3 follow-up. So definitely the contribution of CLG will be extremely helpful throughout the preparations.
Yunus, may I also interrupt quickly?
Please,
Again,
yeah.
Sabine from German Association of Cities. I'd just like to ask you two direct questions concerning the Sundays, very important for us as an association. And you told us that you are going to present then a declaration, and 100 or more delegates will agree upon that declaration. Is that right? We as German Association of Cities would like to get involved in the preparation committee. I learned that you plan a committee like that. Is that right?
Mm-hmm. Sabine, let me, first of all, thanks for underlining once again. And for those who are in the call, let me address that we had already, of course, having much bigger consultations than what is presented here. But we are approaching to some final, let's say, confirmation, especially in terms of our relation with the German partners, including, of course, Deutsche Städtetag. The meeting we will have this week, I think we will agree on some more clarities, and once this is done, for the 7th of May meeting, I think we will be able to announce much more the structure or process and how who would do what. So we are going step by step. This call was especially for those who have not been aware of all these things, but definitely Deutsche Städtetag as the host country's, let's say, network of cities, we want them to be involved in all elements of the whole event.
Okay, so, thank you very much. I'm happy to hear that.
yeah, that for sure for that. But in terms of, it's a bit too early to say whether we will have a declaration or not. As maybe you heard from Emmanuel, we should be a bit innovative, and we should consider a number of options. It could be declaration or outcome or a commitment document. So we have to make sure that it is meeting the expectations of all partners. But for sure, it will be inclusive that the key partners, those who are committed to be part of this process, will be involved in the decision making, in the designing of all the outcomes. And in that sense, Deutsche Städtetag will be one of the most active partners. We are confident on that.
Okay, thanks a lot.
So there is...
there was another question, briefly. You told us about vertical integration of NDC, so I understood northern developed countries, is that right? And just the question, why do you just refer to northern countries in order to vertical integration and not... Yes?
Sorry, misunderstanding. May I talk German for 1 minute? Sabine, NDCs sind national festgesetzte Klimaziele.
Okay. Okay, my mistake. So sorry for that.
Just a language issue. So the question is...
yeah. Well, that's
I'm clear.
Susanna.
Okay,
this
thanks.
is
clear.
as
we are fully
clear. Exactly. This is global, not north and south. Everyone has their shares, and we will see that how it will evolve. And that was another issue that Emmanuel, for example, from C40 raised. It's now time for us. I hear from this call at least that almost all our partners have supported this for, let's say, work streams, and now it's time to work on it, who does what and how to take forward. So that's, I think, the key message for us, that we are on the right track, and it's now, if we can announce the delegations who are working on this, each working group, let's say, each thematic group, they can bring their ideas, documents, proposals, and then we can build upon that. And this is the way where we would like to convene. We had some experiences, we had some ideas, but let's share it from now until the summit so that we can come with a collective understanding. And there will be some country experiences, there will already be some experiences, so we can also highlight how this is done, especially in the case of some good practices like Germany. We would have to make a benefit of them as much as possible.
May I have a short word?
Sure. Please, Susan, go ahead.
First of all, having heard all these offers to cooperate, all the valuable contributions to this call, we're very grateful, and our expectations of this conference are highest because these valuable contributions will raise it up to another step. I would like to ask those who have decided to contribute in a special way and have worded it or are just rethinking it to send a short email to Yunus copying me so that we can take all these contributions into our next partner meeting on Friday. This would be a great help, so if you could just send a three-line email to Yunus and me, it would be highly appreciated.
Okay, perfect.
Thanks a lot to all these having made their contributions.
Yeah. If I'm correct, I think we have addressed almost all of the contributions. There was a request from Eva that we would be sending you the agenda in advance for 7th of May for sure. As I said, we are advancing, and it's starting from this week. It will be a bit more speeded up. The hotel capacity is a question from C40. We know this is the disadvantage of Bonn, which is the hosting capacity is compared to other venues maybe a bit different. Susan, do you have any information on that? Please, our partners in need of hotel capacities can write me an email and I connect them directly to the person in our tourism office working with hotel bookings. Annette, she's a very skilled person and she will try to facilitate your bookings as soon as possible. So if you should still be in need of hotels, contact me ASAP and I'll connect you. Good. I see a question from Carlos about support to delegations from the South. This is exactly what we have been also discussing. Maybe you can see in the program presentation, there is a special logo which is called Special Partner German Economic Cooperation and Development, which is considering to mobilize a significant amount of financial resources to the success of this event, where we already foresee a certain budget to be reserved for travel and accommodation. Today, we also had a discussion with the UNFCCC. They are also expecting to mobilize more resources as much as possible from different partners. We have been asking some other partners so that for sure we would like to increase the number of participation from the South, and in particular from Africa, small island states, climate vulnerable countries in particular, and if there will be more resources, you can connect to us so that we can advance. But I think by the time we reach the 7th of May, the scale, the number could be visible, but we are hoping that at least minimum 50 to 60 can be, or I mean, let's say around 50 can be from the conference budget, but let's keep this to the discussion on the 7th of May. And additional support are more than welcome. Okay, so I think we have reached to the level of maturity for this call. Once again, we all really sincerely apologize for this difficulty of accessing to the meeting, this limitation with the number of access, and we appreciate all your flexibility. I would like to particularly thank for our partners from Tokyo and Sao Paulo who have joined us in the late hours of the night and the early hours of the morning, which is showing their commitment I hear their slightly disappointment that we have to kick them out a bit, but I thank you very much for all your interest. I'd like to particularly mention Kenji from Tokyo, who has shown a great interest in our work, and from Sao Paulo we have Flavio as well. So this shows the diversity of commitment, and we are confident that once again we will show how commitment of local and subnational governments will support to accelerate climate action. And I'd like to conclude with this, and we will make sure you receive the PowerPoint links and documents. And as Susan Nolden mentioned, in case we would receive any updates from your side until this Thursday, this will help us enormously in our plans and dialogue with our German partners on Friday, this Friday, and also preparation for the meeting on 7th of May. With this, I'd like to wish you all a good day, have a nice sleep or good morning, and have a nice day throughout the rest of your hours. And I'll look forward to meeting you soon.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.